Want to hear a song, or?
Just go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this is a tune about an outlaw back in the early 20th century. His name was Otto Wood. Well, step up, boys, and listen to the song. Sing it to you right, but you might think it's wrong. It's all about a man named Otto Wood. Can't tell y'all, but I wish I could. He stepped in a pawn shop rain the day, then had a fight with a crook, they say. He pulled out his gunshot, fatal blows. That's the way this story goes. Otto, why didn't you run? Otto's undead and gone. Said, Otto, why didn't you run? Sheriff about that fool gun. Woo-hoo. They spread the news as fast as they could. Sheriff warned out an Otto. And a jury said murder in the second degree. Judge passed sentence to the penitentiary. They locked him in the pen, but it done no good, cause they couldn't hold the man they called Otto. And a little while he slipped outside, put a gun on the guard, said, take me for a ride. Otto, why didn't you run? Otto's undead and gone. Said, Otto, why didn't you run? Sheriff allowed that fool to run. Well, the next time I got him was away out west, and a hold-up gang got shot through the breast. They dragged him back in when it got well, locked him down in a dungeon cell. Well, Otto was a man, he would not run, cause he always carried a 44 gun. He loved the women, hated law, just wouldn't take nobody's jaw. Otto, why didn't you run? Otto's undead and gone. Said, Otto, why didn't you run? Sheriff allowed that 44 gun. Woo-hoo. He rambled out west and he rambled all around till he met two sheriffs in a southern town. And they said, Otto, step this way, we've been expecting you every day. He pulled out his gun and he said, one crooked move and you both fall dead. You better crank out the car, take me out of town. A few minutes later he was graveyard bound. Otto, why didn't you run? Otto's undead and gone. Said, Otto, why didn't you run? Sheriff allowed that fool for gun. Woo-hoo.
If you ask me, that's pretty fancy.
Well, thank you, Michael.
That's pretty fancy stuff. And
That's a fancy record you got on your lap, don't you?
I'll get to this later. Let me just first let me start on this banjo. Yeah, the clawhammer style. It seems like the bluegrass style is a lot more popular than clawhammer.
Yeah, it is. It's more popular. It's more heard over radio and commercials now. Just about every other commercial, you hear some kind of bluegrass banjo going on in it.
Yeah.
But I prefer the old-timey is a little mellower and a little less, you know, schizoid sound.
And also, it seems more traditional as well.
Exactly, it's more deep-rooted. Of course, the bluegrass style was mainly pretty much made popular and invented by Earl Scruggs back in like the 40s and the 50s. So that style of bluegrass playing isn't very old.
I see.
By any means, whereas this old-timey style goes back at least 100 years or so.
Well, that's interesting. All right, let me talk about this album now. This is, let's see if I can place my finger here so it doesn't...
Well, that's all right. I got a banjo there. So.
Yeah, it's just a little, it's LJ's banjo, a little joke there. But LJ, you made this album yourself about 2 years ago.
Is that right? It's been that long.
1983, and actually it's hard to find in the record stores, but I'll tell our watchers and listeners that if you're interested, please get in touch with the Folk Exposure through Cable Tap, and I'll get you in touch with LJ and the album, so that's no problem. In fact, you play all the instruments, I imagine, on this album as well, right?
Yeah, that was kind of an experimental album. I mean, it is traditional, but yet it's experimental in that I got carried away with overdubbing and stuff. So there's a few selections in there where I'm playing like 7 or 8 different things at the same time. But it's kind of subtle, so it doesn't blow you away. It's interesting.
Let's pick up another instrument here, and
All right.
how about the fiddle?
The fiddle.
Is there
Okay.
such thing as a bluegrass fiddle or old-timey fiddle? Is there a way
Well,
to...
that's all in the style in which you play it. You know, bluegrass is a little more, how do you like that? A little more flashier, I would say, and maybe more melodic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because bluegrass fiddling tends to resemble swing and jazz fiddling a lot these days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, different jazz scales and stuff that they use. Whereas in old-timey music was mainly meant to dance to, do the old-time square dancing and barn dances, so it's very rhythmic rather than melodic. It's
see.
kind of trance-like. If you get around a group of old-time musicians, they can play the same tune like for an hour and a half and just kind of vary the rhythm and maybe vary the notes a little bit. And they'll just kind of sit there like they're, you know, chanting or something. It's kind of weird.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it's almost like a mantra or a meditation
Exactly.
thing, just keep on over. Just one quick silly question. For some reason, the fiddle and the violin is the same thing, right?
This is a violin, yes. But I play a fiddle. So.
There's no difference in a fiddle or a violin.
Well, some fiddlers do make some alterations, like flattening the bridge to get, say, a bow 2 strings at a time easier and stuff like that. I don't do any of that stuff, but sometimes fiddlers do that, alter their instruments to make them more fiddle-like, you know.
Okay.
But essentially, a fiddle is a violin played, you know, for traditional reasons.
Did you find, when learning the fiddle, was that one of the more difficult instruments to learn how to play?
Yeah, still learning it. Well, the one thing about old-timey fiddling, mountain fiddling, is that a lot of them old players use different tunings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've spent a lot of time in West Virginia with this, with a number of fiddlers, but there's one in particular, Burl Hammonds, who lives up in Pocahontas County. He's about 70-some years old now. And every time you give him a fiddle, he'd just sit there like for about an hour, and I couldn't make heads or tails of what he was doing. And then all of a sudden, he'd start playing it. It would be in tune for him, but it wouldn't be standard tuning. Standard tuning is G, D, A, E, starting from the bottom up. Now here, this tuning I learned from Burl is G, D, G, B. So it's like a chord, kind of like a dulcimer is tuned to a chord. Now this is an old-timey tune that he showed me. I forget the name of it. It might be Piney Woods or something. But not many people play this except for Burl and now me and other people that he's shown. And when you tune it like this, you get like sympathetic vibrations, you know, like almost like a bagpipe type droning sound. And that's very mountain-like, and it's kind of reminiscent of the old Scottish and Irish pipes. That's kind of where that came from. So this is for Burl, wherever he is. I trust you're still alive out there. Actually, I'll be going up to see him in a couple weeks.
now that you mention it, it does sound a little bit like bagpipes.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine the Scotland and Irish, they all moved to the United States and
There's
settled
a-
in the
yeah.
Appalachian Mountains. Is that?
There's a lot of Scotch-Irish people living in pockets of the mountains. Of course, a lot of them came over back in the 1700s and 1800s from all the famines and the unfair tax laws and all that stuff over there. So they came here, and on their way west, the Appalachians were kind of their first big obstacle along the way. So a lot of people chose to settle there, and they found a lot of the land was fertile and useful. So to this day, you can go to certain areas of the mountains and find the same songs and tunes that were played and sung a
So,
couple hundred years ago, unchanged.
so